Elizabeth Kuiper, you are Executive Director Public Affairs for EFPIA in Brussels. Welcome to Stockholm.
Thanks so much. A pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you here. When you're looking at the life science sector in Europe during the years to come and patients' access to new innovative treatments, what are the main developments and challenges, would you say?
I would say that's the need for European excellence. And I think that really means that for Europe it's important to keep the same level of investment R&D, to have a strong patent system, to make sure that actually patients get the innovation they need. And therefore it's for a reason that indeed we need to have that system in Europe. And we see that other parts of the world sometimes are investing more than Europe. For example, if you think about China and India, they do a lot to attract businesses. And that's not only important with a view to indeed keeping jobs and growth, which is also important for our industry, but after all, this is in order to make sure that innovation is also keeping to continue playing its part in Europe, and that also European patients get the innovation that they need and that they deserve.
Okay, we have the European elections coming up. What would you say is the most important decisions to be made during the years to come when it comes to life science sector?
I think it really is the need for a strong European industrial policy, because we know that the current Commission had a lot of focus on jobs and growth, however, never managed to translate it in an ambitious industrial policy. And after all, we as a sector, we have 150,000 jobs in Europe. We invested 35 billion in R&D in Europe alone. And I think that makes up for an incredibly important ecosystem in Europe that we need to cherish. And therefore, having a specific policy from the Commission with a specific recognition of the specific need of a specific sector like ours will be very important going forward.
One of the processes going on now is Brexit, and it has been going on for quite some time. What is your reflections on that when it comes to patients' access to medicines in Europe?
Well, indeed, as you say, from the very start of the process, patient safety and the continuity of patient supply of medicines has been really one of our most urgent priorities, because a lot of businesses have been speaking about the business impact of Brexit, the financial consequences and the preparation. But from the very start of the negotiations, we as EFPIA really have been saying that indeed the patients' supply of medicines and the fact that this is about patients and public health is really important for us and also makes us unique as a sector compared to all these other sectors.
As Brexit happened, do you think that patients will have the access to medicine they need, or do you think we will have problems?
Well, I know for a fact that our companies have been doing a lot in terms of the preparation for every scenario. So it's the no-deal scenario, but also the future relationship with the UK. So they've been investing a lot of money indeed to make sure that they did everything what is required for the transfer of marketing authorizations, for example. They put a lot of resources in that, but it's also true that there are a lot outside their control that also might lead to potential disruption come Brexit Day. And then we're speaking, for example, about the fact that there might be issues with border control, really leading to disruption. And we know that for our products, for our medicines, we cannot afford that products are being blocked at the border because of the fact that there's chaos due to the lack of organization. And again, that is something that we really are very concerned about. And therefore we've been calling on the UK government to make sure indeed that they make an exception for our medicines. And luckily indeed they have been granting that exception, but still it's something that we need to be carefully watching.
This is the short-term consequences of Brexit. Long-term, when it comes to research, the UK is a strong country within scientific research generally and medicine in particular. How do you perceive the development in Europe when it comes to medical research if the UK leaves the Union?
Well, I think it's incredibly important to indeed keep working with the UK, to keep having a relationship with the UK, because we see that today the UK has a very important role that they play when it comes to indeed R&D, the UK participation in clinical trials, the UK participation in the context of the European Medicines Agency. And it's really important to keep working with the UK in order to maintain that level of ambition.
a complete different question is digitalisation and the development of digital that is affecting all sectors of the society. How do you think this will affect pharmaceutical industry during the years to come?
Well, I think first it would be really important at European level that the digital policy is really taken from a broad perspective. Because I think a digital policy is important for healthcare, but what we've been seeing in the past is that at European level, somehow policy was somehow fragmented. And I think it has to do with the fact that European policy is about European competences, and healthcare really is not perceived as a European competence because healthcare systems are so different in form and shape, and they're national after all. And I think for that reason it would be really important that going forward the European Commission has a broad vision where the different directorate generals that are responsible for the different policies of the Commission are working together. So it's really making sure that indeed the digital policy is linked to the healthcare area, because I think a lot can be achieved and has to be achieved with the use of data. We're not only speaking about the use of mHealth, the use of eHealth, but also the role of real-world data, real-world evidence when it comes to approval of medicines, the use of medicines for patients. And I think there's a lot more that can be done, especially perhaps to end with in order to overcome fragmentation that's still existing at European level.
Looking at Brussels from a country like Sweden, when we're looking at digital, we have seen two decisions. First, the decisions that the cost of cell phones and the calls from cell phones is on the same level in all European countries, and that has been very positive for all people with a cell phone. Secondly, it's GDPR, and it's lots and lots of work driven by GDPR. Do you see the possibility of the European Commission taking actual decisions that will have a positive effect on the digital development in Europe?
Well, I think here you touch on a very important issue, because if you speak about a GDPR, that is indeed a piece of legislation that's actually rather detrimental to the use of data and research, because of the fact that this is a regulation, but it's so fragmentized, and therefore again the use of data and research therefore is sometimes blocked because of the GDPR. So we as EFPIA are working with governments in order to make sure that at European level this is a discussion and is a topic that it's addressed indeed.
New technologies like cell and gene therapy, how is Europe to challenge the market access hurdles for these new therapies?
I think that is a very important question, and I think for us as an industry that has really everything to do with the regulatory system that we have in Europe. And that's a regulatory system that really needs to be fit for purpose. And I think the big question therefore is the system that we have nowadays still indeed able to do so? Because we know that the technologies that you were just describing are not always in line with the technologies of the past. And I think therefore we already see that, for example, if you compare the FDA in the States and the EMA in Europe, there are differences in the speed of adaptation to these technologies. And I think that is the big question at European level. And as EFPIA, we're very much working towards making proactive proposals in order to make sure that the next European Commission is going to work on that and make sure that indeed the system keeps to be flexible in order to adapt to these breakthrough innovations.
Elizabeth, thank you for the possibility to discuss these important matters with you, and once again it's good to have you in Stockholm.
My pleasure. Keep in touch.
Thank you.